Hey, what do you know? This is the Melvin Live Show, and today we are going to be talking about the newsletter. So we're gonna continue from what we left off the last time about the newsletter itself, and the whole purpose of creating this newsletter is so that we are able to nurture and to communicate with this group of people who arguably would be our audience. And so, first and foremost, I think let's get down to the first principles itself. So, why do we want to create a newsletter? Well, we want to create a newsletter because we want to use that as a medium to be able to communicate, educate, as well as inform our our target audience. That is the primary purpose. Now, why do we want to do that? Well, the reason why we want to do that is because we believe that these are the group of people that we can serve. And if we can serve this group of people well, then what's going to happen? It is just going to help us help them. And so in turn, we're going to get rewarded. And so that's the primary purpose of it. I mean, this is pure business, right? So the next question that you might want to ask is that if that is the case, then how do we identify uh, who are our audience? And I think this is a fairly tricky question as well as a fairly um, important question to answer. Now, why do I say it's a tricky question? Well, it's a tricky question because it really creates a lot of um, let me put it this way, if you are not familiar with who you want to work with, you may either go too wide or you may go too deep. So let me give you the example. When I first started, I was thinking that the people that I want to reach are people who are men in their 40s to 50s. They they are a dad, which means they've got kids, and they want to invest as much time as possible with their kids, right? And so that's how I kind of define who my audience was. Now, much later, I realized that, well, some of these people, they may fall into this category, but their interests are totally different. So as a result of that, it was not feasible for me to work with this group of people because it's just not possible to help them, right? Because their goals are different, their level of urgency is different. So it has not been very, very, I would say, useful. So what's going to happen here is that there are three key questions that you want to ask yourself when we talked about how are you able to identify your audience. So yesterday we talked about the question to ask yourself whether if your newsletter, the topic that you're going to pick, is going to be profitable. Today we're going to talk about the group of people that you are picked. Are they the right group of people? So what do we mean by right? Well, the category of right or the criteria for us to determine whether they are right or they are not the right fit falls squarely into two categories, right? So one category is that it's that level of interest. Now, the interest has to be aligned to ours, right? Or our interests have to be aligned to theirs. So if they have an interest, let's say in creating a digital business, then obviously this group of people are the people that we want to connect with. However, by extension of that, there will be a group of people who are looking for something, but they are not quite sure if digital business is something that they can handle. And so with that group of people, really what we want to do is that we want to educate them. We want to show them that it is possible. People just like them have done it before, and so they can do it as well. Now, for for that in that instance itself, really, it comes down to being able to segregate them. Now, I'll talk about that in a minute. So first is you want to look at their interests. What are their interests aligned with ours? Our interests align with theirs. That is the key question, right? Then the next question that we want to ask essentially is, out of those group of people whose interests are aligned to us, how ready are them to take the action, right? What is the next course of action they're going to take? So, for example, in my case, when I am mapping out the journey from someone who is trading time for money to someone who has built a digital business and achieved live freedom, what I do is I break it down into several milestones. And each of these milestones represent a particular stage that the person will be going through. So, for example, the first stage, when they start off first with trading time for money, the first stage that they come into it, they start to wonder, what is it that I have that I could monetize it, or how can I monetize that? So that becomes the primary aim and the first thing on their mind. So they have to take this first step, because if they do not take that first step itself, then nothing's going to happen, right? So they have to take the first step. Now, once they have taken the first step, the key thing behind this is that they would then, once they start searching, they will go through that period where, there is some level of self doubt, because you will start saying, like, well, I'm not sure if I am cut out for this and if this is something that I want to do. And so there's a bit of a self doubt as well as that imposter syndrome as well. So then the next this phase was really how I want to be able to help them overcome it. So you have to map out this journey itself into smaller segment, because that's the only way you would be able to see that on each at each phase itself, what are some of the key things that can happen. So if you like, I am running a catalytic course on mapping out the journey, so that you can use that to help you think about content creation. You can use that to help you in terms of how you want to be able to, connect with your audience itself, right? So what are some of the ways that you could essentially segment or look go deeper into your audience itself? So one way to do that really, it's by way of asking them questions, right? So asking them questions in terms of, like, where do you currently see yourself? Are you more of a person who trade time for money, or are you more of a person who is nearing the goal of live freedom, right? So that's one way to do that. So we kind of want to know at which end of the extreme spectrum are they at, right? And so then we know that this is how we are going to segment them. The other one that I use quite a fair bit in terms of segmentation, it's whether people clicked and whether people open my email, because there are many times where people would just subscribe for an email newsletter, but they do not really read it. And so as a result of that, you have a lot of subscribers, but they are not really interested in what you have to say. So what I do is I would essentially just clean up these people. I would take them off the mailing list. um, and yeah, so that's how I do it. So what I want to do is I want to trim down to a group of people who are highly engaged and people who are going to be able to, or wanting to able to, you know um, interact with the content that I share. All right. I hope that makes sense to you. So this three ways essentially, if I can summarize this again, is that this three ways to identify your audience. Number one is you want to identify them in terms of their interests. What is their interest, right? So after you have identified the interests, the next thing is to look at their behavior. So by behavior, we mean that you want to determine if this are the group of people who are looking for information, or are they looking for solution, or are they looking for criteria to help them decide whether they should make the purchase or not. So that is where we talk about interest itself. So that's the second part. The third way that we want to use to identify our audience is essentially once they have come into our email newsletter, we want to kind of further segment them in terms of where they are at which end of the spectrum are they at. So you always want to think of whatever you are sharing here as a journey, right? We go from point A to point B. I think it's preposterous to think that every one of us, it's when we start broadcasting we are already up there. That's bullshit, right? So what we want to do is to bring across the level of genuine, being genuine, being authentic, because we want to say that, hey, this is the journey that I'm taking, and if you want, you can come along. Of course, this stage is a lot more difficult than previously when I first started. Nonetheless, I think there is still a lot of leeway, and there is still a lot of need for a certain group of people itself. So don't despair if you think that you have been doing this, and you are not quite sure if it's too late. Well, it's never too late. All right, so start right away. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be talking about how you're going to get traffic, right? What are some of the ways that you can get traffic itself? That's something that always people want to look forward to. But what I actually tell them is that, well, we're not looking for traffic per se. What we are looking at is, the right kind of traffic, because it doesn't matter if you get traffic, but if that traffic is the wrong group of people, then it doesn't really make sense anyways, right? So that's how it goes. Okay, so I'm gonna bounce here tonight. Check it out tomorrow. The episode is gonna be on how you can drive traffic. The other thing that I would really want to encourage you to do is that if you have not already subscribed to my email newsletter, please consider heading down to melvin.me and check out the first issue and see if there's something that interests you. If it is, then sign up. If it is not, well, then that's cool. All right. So with that, I thank you so much for watching, and I see you guys on the next one. Have a good one. Bye bye.